This film is based on a true story. Ocean Shores, Washington, 2007. 12-year-old Courtney Stodden is upset because she is being bullied by the girls in her class. Krista, Courtney's mother, promises her that she will never have to go back to that school again. Courtney's parents often argue. At times like these, the girl prays to God, asking him to help her do the right thing so there can be peace in their family. Krista sees how much her daughter is suffering and explains that unfortunately things like this sometimes happen between adults. The woman just wants Courtney not to blame herself under any circumstances. All the girl dreams of is leaving Ocean Shores and conquering Los Angeles. Courtney writes her own music and loves imagining herself as a superstar. Krista works as a hairdresser from home. One of her clients, Aurora, sees Courtney and notices her artistry, then advises Krista to consider signing the girl with a modeling agency. Aurora has a contact at an agency, so she could help. Courtney goes to her first photo shoot. At first she feels shy, but she quickly relaxes in front of the camera, as if this is exactly where she is meant to be. Krista believes her daughter is destined for success. After seeing the girl's photos, the organizers invite her to take part in a beauty pageant. It could teach her confidence and grace. Courtney is very nervous. Winning the pageant would open every door for her. And Courtney wins. The next few years pass this way. Krista does everything she can to get her daughter noticed and even manages to get 15-year-old Courtney her own show on a local TV channel. Her success is also her mother's success. While Courtney's peers are studying at school, she is creating content and becoming more and more popular. Krista even makes her daughter dress for church service as if she were going onto a runway, which naturally the conservative parishioners do not like. In the end, mother and daughter are asked to leave the parish. However, the bad news does not end there. Courtney's show is cancelled after numerous complaints from women who consider her image too provocative. Krista has no intention of giving up, believing that her daughter has outgrown this town. They just need an investor, someone who can take Courtney's career to the next level. However, the task turns out to be anything but simple. This is an extremely sleazy business, so all potential investors are primarily interested in what Courtney can offer in return right now, given the fact that their investment may not pay off. Soon, through Krista's old friend Tim Wilson, mother and daughter receive the contact details of 51-year-old actor Doug Hutcherson, who appeared in The Green Mile and many other projects. He has connections in the film and music industries. Doug teaches acting classes, but places are limited. For Courtney, this could be an excellent springboard. Doug has seen her photos and is willing to consider working with her. Very nervous, the girl writes Doug an email. Of course, she does it under Krista's supervision. The woman tells her daughter what to write and how to write it in order to interest the investor. The response does not take long. Doug invites Courtney to come to Los Angeles so they can have several lessons in person. Realizing where this is going, Krista calls Doug and reminds him that Courtney is only 16. Doug assures the woman that he only wants to help a young talent succeed in the brutal world of show business. Meanwhile, Doug and Courtney continue texting and emailing, getting to know each other better. Krista makes sure everything remains appropriate. Gradually, Doug completely wins Courtney's trust. His attention makes her feel special, important. Their messages soon turn into daily phone calls. Courtney tells Doug that she no longer wants to take part in beauty pageants. He promises that it will never happen again, that they will go to the studio of his friend, a music producer, and later move her whole family to Los Angeles. Doug will take care of everything. When he confesses his love to her, Courtney returns his feelings, even though they have never once met in person. Doug also decides that Krista should know the truth, and over the phone he tells her about his feelings for Courtney. Krista is willing to turn a blind eye to the large age gap, since Doug is a celebrity. After all, things like this happen all the time in Hollywood. Courtney packs her things, preparing to finally meet her influential admirer. If her daughter truly wants this, Krista is ready to consent to the marriage. In some states it is allowed. However, Alex, Courtney's father, is categorically against it, understanding that this is not the girl's wish but his wife's attempt to compensate for her own unrealized ambitions through their daughter. Courtney is very upset. Krista promises to convince Alex no matter what. In the end, he has no choice but to accept it, and the couple takes their daughter to meet Doug Hutcherson. When Krista sees him for the first time, she has mixed feelings. He looks much older and shorter than he did in his photos. There are still healing bruises on his temples from a facelift. But none of that matters to Courtney. She is already willing to agree to anything, just like her mother. Courtney is happy in anticipation of the wedding, but Krista is even happier, certain that her daughter will now definitely build a successful music career. Very little time passes before Doug proposes to Courtney. Of course, she says yes. On her wedding day, the girl feels as if she is in a fog because everything is happening too quickly, much faster than she can process. Her parents sign the consent form, and the marriage is officially registered. Now Courtney is a young wife. But she does not yet know that her nightmare is only beginning. Doug has fallen out with all of his relatives because they did not approve of this marriage. So Courtney wants to be the perfect wife, just so her husband will be happy and will not regret his choice. From then on, Doug picks on Courtney over every little thing, getting irritated when she interrupts him or does something her own way. His kindness vanishes in an instant. This is no longer the man she married. Courtney has learned to be a good wife. All her career ambitions have been pushed far into the background. One evening, unable to take it anymore, she calls her mother. However, Courtney is ashamed to tell the truth and only asks her mother to come. Soon Krista arrives and admires the beautiful house her daughter now lives in. Courtney tries to act as if everything is wonderful, but the sadness in her eyes gives her away. When asked whether Doug is arranging meetings with producers for her, the girl admits that so far he is not. She also mentions that he changed after the wedding. Krista explains to her daughter that marriage is not easy. Since Courtney has chosen this path, she needs to be patient. What really worries Krista is that Doug still has not kept his promise and has not given his wife's career the push he promised. Courtney begins receiving insulting letters. Their marriage, with such a huge age gap, becomes the object of intense media attention. Krista, on the contrary, sees this as an opportunity for Courtney to announce herself to the world. She is already in the headlines of every newspaper. The girl feels she is not ready for the details of her private life to become public property. Moreover, when Courtney's age surfaces in the press, every studio refuses to work with Doug. 25 years of his career go up in smoke. Courtney is deeply upset by what the newspapers are writing about her. Krista tries to convince her daughter that in Hollywood, any publicity is good publicity, and that she is a star. That same evening, Krista leaves her daughter alone with the situation and goes back home. In a single day, Courtney turns from a housewife into a scapegoat for the entire world. Some media outlets decide for themselves who she is, and everyone believes them. For them, the lie turns out to be far more interesting and profitable than the truth. Doug only advises her not to dwell on it. Soon he receives an offer from a late-night show to give an interview together with his young wife. Courtney does not want to do it. She does not want to sit there and fake a smile for the camera. Doug irritably asks how they are supposed to make money in that case. Courtney has no choice. She playfully tells the camera how much she loves her husband, and that age is just a number. All the attention is focused on her, not on Doug. At night, Courtney cries, no longer able to bear the way everyone, even A-list stars, drags her through the mud. But she cannot afford to fall apart and disappoint her mother. Krista decides to take matters into her own hands and become Courtney's personal manager. The girl is glad that her mother has moved in with them. Courtney plays her role, taking part in all kinds of photoshoots and shows. Doug fades into the background, while she becomes the main breadwinner of the family. In public they look like a bright, provocative couple, but behind closed doors, terrible things are happening. Doug constantly flies into jealous rages at Courtney, demanding that she do everything he says. Doug makes the girl feel guilty, pointing out that he has sacrificed everything for her. Only at night, walking the streets alone, can Courtney feel truly free. In those moments no one recognizes her, she is left to herself. Just when Courtney thinks things cannot get any worse, it turns out they can. Doug claims that her mother is in love with him, which means they can no longer trust her to be their manager. Courtney refuses to believe it, but Krista does not even deny that over time she has grown attached to Doug. The woman decides they should no longer live in the same house, no matter how much her daughter begs her to stay. That is how Doug manages to make sure Courtney has no one left but him, and they return to his version of normal life. Every time Courtney tries simply to live, Doug reminds her whom she should be grateful to for everything. One day Courtney receives an invitation to appear on a show in the UK. She does not even expect her husband to let her go, but to her surprise he does, because they have been promised a good fee. Despite everything, Courtney is somehow afraid to be away from him. It is something like Stockholm Syndrome. The days spent without Doug make Courtney realize that she can be much happier without him. When she returns, the girl tells Doug directly that she no longer loves him. He gets down on his knees and begs his wife not to leave him, calling her his angel. But Courtney remains firm and moves into the guest bedroom, until she can figure out where to go. That is how their standoff begins. They avoid each other for months. Every night she goes out partying at clubs, trying to make up for lost time. The girl is 19, still naive and foolish, but for the first time she is in control of her own life. Courtney still keeps in touch with her mother, although she does not tell her everything. Krista admits that she has not been happy with Alex for a long time. Courtney already knows that. Sometimes she blames herself, thinking that if her mother had not moved in for a while to help her, everything would have been fine. Courtney burns through her life at parties, which predictably leads to her getting caught up in all kinds of messy situations. In moments of sobriety, she sobs, filled with hatred for herself. And when Courtney's despair reaches its peak, Doug is right there, saying that if she lets him back into her life, he will protect her. Courtney decides to give their relationship another chance, They even remarry. But as expected, shortly after the second wedding, Doug shows his true face again. He has isolated his wife from everyone she loves, including her mother, at the very moment when the girl needs her most. He has won. When Courtney sees 2 lines on the test, she feels anything but joy, while Doug seems absolutely happy. He wants to tell everyone this wonderful news as soon as possible. Courtney's pregnancy brings a new wave of media attention. Her husband becomes as caring as he was only at the beginning of their relationship. Because of the stress, Courtney loses the baby. However, not wanting to lose such an opportunity to be in the spotlight again, Doug suggests that she pretend she is still pregnant, otherwise they will have to break off a lucrative contract with a TV channel. Courtney is too broken to argue. When they finally reveal the truth to the world, scandalous headlines appear in the papers once again. With the loss of the reality show, they also lose their home. They move into an ordinary apartment. The beautiful life she had been promised now seems like an unreachable childhood fantasy. The thing about hitting rock bottom is that you do not always realize you are already there, but Courtney has known it from the start. For the first time in several years, she decides to call her father, but when she cannot reach him, she sinks into even deeper despair. Feeling that she has nothing left to lose, Courtney tells her husband she is filing for divorce. Doug agrees to live separately, but suggests that they not divorce officially or make any public statements, and instead continue earning money as a celebrity couple. That is the only way they can rebuild their lost careers. Courtney agrees, and after packing her things, moves out. The girl understands that if she wants to start over, she needs to start by getting clean, and she voluntarily checks herself into rehab. Alex visits his daughter. All these years, he has lived with the guilt of ever allowing this to happen. Alex should have done everything to make sure this marriage never took place. Courtney does not hold a grudge against her father. Finally, after speaking honestly, they both feel a great weight lift from their shoulders. The girl begins seeing a therapist to understand herself. Since the age of 16, she has never been the real Courtney. Now she is gradually getting to know her and feels at peace. She has had enough of pretending. Courtney also meets with her mother to tell her that it was wrong, even if Krista only wanted what was best for her daughter. All Courtney needs now is to let go of the past and move on. At 25, she finally divorces Doug after 10 years of marriage. There is still so much ahead of her.